Just firstly, your reaction to the Diane Abbott interview. She says that actually the right thing for Keir Starmer to do now is to go back to the popular policies of the 2019 manifesto. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I really don't want to be responding to Diane Abbott. I want to be responding to the country, because Diane said a few things that actually were absolutely right. We need a policy platform that speaks to the entirety of the country. We had a very mixed set of results over the last few days. We've won our moralities back, as you said, in Merseyside, in Manchester, Bristol, the west of England, and also in places like Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We won from the Conservatives. They won a lot of seats from the councils in what you might call the blue wall, but we still got a problem in the red wall, and it's too soon after the triple problems that we've had of the most dreadful 2019 general election result. We've had the COVID pandemic, and we've had a post-Brexit Britain. We've got to respond now to what communities are telling us. And from what I heard on the doors right across the country, voters are willing to listen to the Labour Party again, but they're just not making that step yet to vote for us. And that's why Keir Starmer has to speed up the reforms in the party, speed up the policy making process. And to be slightly fair, and people have completely missed all of this, in the last 14 months, all of the oxygen in politics in this country has rightly been taken up by coping with this pandemic and seeing what happens after the pandemic. Now that we're coming out of that, it gives Keir a really good chance now to supercharge what he wants to do in terms of policy and wants to do with the party. And as Diane says, talk to everyone from Hackney to Hartlepool and all four corners of the country in terms of what Labour's perspective is for the future.
You just described what happened on Thursday as a mixed set of results for the Labour Party. This is an election where, you lost Hartlepool for the first time since that seat was ever created. You lost control of Durham Council for the first time in 100 years. You were humiliated in the Tees Valley mayoral contest. Even in places where you hung on, you were down 9 seats in Sunderland, down 6 seats in Oldham Council. Some people listening will be like, you don't have a grip on what's going on here. You've just described it as a mixed set of results. The Conservatives have been in power for 11 years. It's not a mixed set of results for the Labour Party, is it?
Well, Sophie, I did say that we've got problems in the red wall, and that includes Durham and Sunderland and Hartlepool. I said that is a real problem for us. We have taken 30 seats in Wales, which is a great result for the Labour Party in Wales. We've been in power there for 22 years. We're back on the park in the Scottish context. We've held the large moralities. We did win a few council seats. But yes, of course, it's a disaster in Sunderland and Hartlepool. Nobody is taking away from how bad that is. In fact, we should have lost the Hartlepool seat back in 2019. We've got a long way back to go. I think there's been about a 3 or 3.5% swing, a uniform swing across the country from the Conservatives to Labour. So we're making progress. It's not fast enough. It's not good enough. We have to re-engage. Nobody's taking away the significance of the things that you've just said, but also we have to talk up the things that have gone well. And we've got a lot of listening to do. We've got a lot of speeding up of those reforms to do. We've got a lot of speeding up of the policy process to talk to those things that the public have been telling us they want the Labour Party to talk about: jobs, our public services, the future of our economy, post-Brexit Britain, the climate. These are all big, big issues we need to start getting on to putting forward that positive policy platform that will speak to all four corners of this country. Nobody's doing down the fact that we've had a disastrous set of election results in some parts of the country, but we also have had some very good election results in other parts of the country too, which is why it's a mixed bag.
I'm just going to... Sorry, you say you've had good election results in some parts of the country. Just, you're down a seat on the London Assembly. In the English councils, you're down 7 councils. In Wales, admittedly, you've done well. That is the one place it feels like you've done well. In Scotland, you're also down seats in the Scottish Parliament. In what world is this making progress? It's not making progress. You're going backwards, if anything.
Well, we're not making progress quickly enough, and that's something that Keir Starmer said. He's taking full responsibility.
Other than Wales, where are you making progress?
We won the west of England. We held on to Bristol. We held on to Manchester. We held on to Merseyside.
Overall, in England, you were going backwards.
You can't, Sophie, say on the one hand we're doing very badly, but not recognise for the places where we've done quite well. We know this has been a bad few days for the Labour Party. The progress that we want to make isn't good enough. But on the one hand, you can't talk about Hartlepool without talking about Wales. You can't talk about the fact that we're doing badly in Sunderland without talking about the fact that we've won the west of England and we won Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. You can't. So it is, yes, of course, we're disappointed. The progress isn't fast enough and we need to reconnect. And that's what Keir Starmer said. He's taken full responsibility and he's going to speed up the reforms in terms of both the party and in terms of the country. And we look forward to seeing what's going to happen in the months ahead. ahead. We've got a huge job to do in terms of recovering from this pandemic. We've got back on the park in Scotland. We've held 30 seats in Wales, which is extraordinary. And I think incumbency in terms of this pandemic has been helpful in terms of the Conservatives in England, the SNP in Scotland, and the Labour Party in Wales. So we have to recognise the patchwork of these results without concentrating on the downsides and the upsides. We have to look at this sensibly, analyse what's gone wrong, analyse what's gone well, and respond to that. That's what any sensible political party that wants to be a credible alternative government should be doing today.
You say that Keir Starmer's taking responsibility for the results. Is sacking Angela Rayner taking responsibility?
Well, this is another example of where we seem to be having political dialogue from social media. Angela Rayner hasn't been sacked, as I understand it. Angela Rayner has been offered a significant promotion to take her from the back office of the Labour Party running elections to the front office where she's talking to the country. So in actual fact, Angela Rayner, as I understand it, as I have been told, has not been sacked, but Keir Starmer has decided to do a reshuffle of his front bench to respond to those election results, to take Angela Rayner from the back office to the front office. I'm not aware of... She's a deputy leader of the party. She'll take a significant role in shadow cabinet. As I understand it, although I don't know the position, she's been offered a significant promotion that means she spends more time talking to the country about policy, using those great way that she communicates and using the mandate that she's got as deputy leader of the party. So that's essentially what's happened. Angela Rayner has not been sacked, but social media has blown up over the last 12 hours, to understand it. And I hope that Lotto I hope the leader's office will respond to that and do the reshuffle. And you'll show that this hasn't been a sacking, but actually a significant way of getting Angela Rayner from the back office to the front office of Labour politics.
You'll forgive me if I'm sceptical at the fact that this is now being spun as, a big promotion for Angela Rayner, when you can't even tell us what job she's going to go to. Maybe that's been scrambled right now by the leader of the opposition's office after seeing the reaction. We were being messaged yesterday, including myself, saying that Keir said he was taking full responsibility for the result of the elections, and he said we need to change. That means change how we run our campaigns in the future. This is not social media Twitter storm. This is coming from the leader of the opposition's office.
Yes, and the leader of the opposition hasn't just said that in messages to you, Sophie, in the media. He said it publicly that he was taking full responsibility for these elections, and I think that's the right thing to do. Keir now deserves the opportunity to reshuffle his team, to reshuffle the policy, to speed up the reforms, to respond to what people have been telling us
so she
in
is
these
being
elections.
It's not just Twitter storming, is it?
But everyone's talking about people have been sacked. The leader of the Labour Party, if he takes responsibility for the elections, therefore takes responsibility for reshuffling the team, takes responsibility for reforming, takes responsibility for responding to those election results. That's what the leader should be doing. If he wasn't responding in that way, not taking responsibility, I'd be perfectly happy to be criticising as the same as Diane Abbott has just done, and you're quite obviously doing at the moment. But he's not. He's taking responsibility. He's resolving to do something about it, and that's what this reshuffle will be about.
I just want to show you a poll. It's coming up on screen now. I'll just read you through the results, just about whether or not the real problem is Keir Starmer. This was a poll that was carried out just before and on polling day this week, asking people for the main reason that they weren't voting Labour. 14% said it was because of Starmer leadership. That's the highest percentage of the four options that they were given. Is Keir Starmer the problem?
No, Keir Starmer has the responsibility now to turn that around. He's only been in power, he's only been leader of the Labour Party in that powerful position since the 4th of April last year. All we've done over the last 14 months has been swamped, rightly so, by the pandemic. He needs time to be able to develop that policy platform. He needs time as leader of the party to reshuffle the pack, respond to these elections, take responsibility. That's what he's doing. And hopefully because he's doing that, that 14% goes down to zero and people see Keir Starmer as being an alternative Prime Minister for this country. The country needs a strong opposition, but it also needs a credible alternative government. The Conservatives can't pretend that they've not been in power for the last 11 years. They can't pretend that the issues in Hartlepool that the voters have voted against the Labour Party for are the sole responsibility of the Labour Party. That's 11 years they've been in power, and they've got a responsibility as well to not break those promises that they're making to the electorate at the moment. So we've got to hold this government to account. We've got to show what the alternative is. We've got to have a positive policy platform, and that's what Keir Starmer is determined to do from these set of elections.
So what should Labour do now? What is the vision? What is the big policy idea?
Well, it's got to be about what the future of the country looks like in a post-Brexit environment. We've got to make sure that we've got...
What should it be? What is the vision for that?
Well, the vision's got to be about people's jobs. It's got to be about people's livelihoods. It's got to be about how we fund our public services. It's got to be about giving power to communities. It's got to be about investing in the places that felt they've been left behind. It's got to be about responding to what the ordinary voter wants. The ordinary voter wants a safe job. They want progression in the workplace. They want good pay. They want well rewarded. They want fairness. They want a safety net. They want their children to do well in school. These things aren't difficult. The policy platform to get us forward in terms of those narratives is the thing that needs to be worked on. But that's what we are determined to do, and that's what Keir is determined to put together in terms of both his team and the policy platform going forward.
OK. I just want to talk to you about Scotland as we finish. There's now a majority in the Scottish Parliament for independence, if you look at the Scottish National Party and also the Scottish Greens. So if the Scottish Parliament does pass legislation for another independence referendum, should the UK government take it to court, or should that be respected?
Well, let's go back to just before the election. There was also a pro-independence majority in the previous Scottish Parliament with the SNP and the Greens. So this isn't new. The SNP talked up getting a majority, said that would be the settled will of the Scottish people, and fell short from doing that. And the important thing to realise from these elections, which is critical for all sides of this debate, is that Scotland's completely split down the middle. In terms of the constituency vote, pro-independence parties just fell short of 50%, and on the regional list vote just got over 50%. So Scotland's completely and utterly split down the middle. The First Minister promised that this election would be about COVID recovery, and we will be holding her to that. And if she brings a bill to Parliament about a referendum, when she promised it would be about COVID recovery, we will certainly not support that. I can't talk for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said he would block a second independence referendum. The Conservatives campaigned on that, but it looks as if they probably will break their promise. And watching Michael Gove earlier, he didn't seem to want to answer the question at all about what the UK government would do. But what we are doing and what our MSPs will be doing when they go back to Parliament on Thursday is having a sole focus on what everyone promised at this election, which is COVID recovery. That's the priorities of the Scottish people. That's the priorities of our MSPs when they go back into that chamber, and it should be the priority for everyone. And both governments, the UK and the Scottish government, has to work together to make this work. Otherwise, Scotland and the rest of the UK will be much diminished. And if I could just reflect on what Mark Drakeford, the Labour First Minister in Wales, said after the election results this week. He said that he was going to go back into Parliament next week. He was going to concentrate fully on COVID recovery and show an aspirational, bright future for a radical Wales. Wouldn't it be great if that's what the First Minister said as well, instead of going back into this quagmire and this divisiveness of another second independence referendum that, quite frankly, is not the priority of the Scottish people at the moment?